Hey there, this is the Penny on Your Thoughts podcast, and I am your host, Penny Chason. I'm a board-certified hypnotist, intuitive, and experiencer. This podcast is about tapping into your subconscious to create a more aligned and abundant life. By leveraging our subconscious, we can master our thoughts, frequency, and vibration. Fusing the conscious, subconscious, and our consciousness is the science of expansion and soul satisfaction. Each week, I'll share in-depth interviews or solo episodes. This podcast was created to share how you have the power to create infinite potential within you. It's my intention that you find this podcast empowering, inspiring, and full of possibility. Now grab your favorite beverage and let's go. Hey, I'm excited to have you back today for another wonderful conversation. Erika Flint and I are really going to dive into what it was like to be on the journey of becoming a hypnotist, becoming an entrepreneur, and the profound impact that we get to have on people's lives every single day. Not only that, I want to express my appreciation to you for being my listener, and also to Magic Mind for being a sponsor of this episode of Penny on Your Thoughts. It's Penny, and I'm back with another guest today, and she's someone special to me. I have known today's guest for several years now. We're professional colleagues, peers, and she's someone that I have looked up to and looked at her success, and it gave me an idea of what was possible for me. And it kind of really lit the fire underneath me. Today I have with me Erika Flint. She is a former software designer, engineer, turned hypnotist, but she's more than just a hypnotist. She's a very well-rounded, world experienced, knowledgeable, heart-centered person. She's won awards within the NGH. She's a member of the Order of Braid, and she's a 4-time published author. And Erika is really just so much more than that. And we're going to dive in today into some of the things that I think we've all experienced as humans in this experience. And if you are an entrepreneur, I'm quite sure we're going to touch on some things that you've probably thought about, pondered, and maybe even dreaded from time to time in what lies ahead, because entrepreneurship is a journey, being a hypnotist is a journey, and they both crack open the path to personal development if you're open to that. So let's talk about what it takes to follow this path in front of us so that we do have that peace, that inner love inside of us, and that we can have a success that just tugs at our soul. Erika, welcome. I would love for you to just take a moment and just really share a little bit more about who you are and what you're doing right now before we see where this leads.
Well, thanks for that beautiful intro. It just reminded me of, you were mentioning, what does it take to do this? And I've been in the business now for 10 years. So it's been exactly 10 years, actually. So I've been doing a lot of reflecting and a lot of thinking. What got me into this business was a lot of heartache and a lot of stress. I didn't ever plan on doing this, but I ended up in the emergency room, not knowing if I wanted to be alive or not. That was really the decision. I was unhappy, and I still remember being there in that emergency room. It was really embarrassing. I had to wear one of those stupid gowns. My whole family was there. And there was a moment when I was like, I'm either going to die here, this is going to be it, or I need to find a new way to live. And I remember in that decision, and decision is such a cool word, right? It means decide, right? To cut off. And it was like, I cut off all other, like this old way of living, right? And that's when I found hypnosis. And now 10 years later, I realize how important it is for me to every day, I am still bringing myself back to this moment of presence, of deep, 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 deep gratitude. I find myself in really deep moments of pure kind of gratitude, and then at the same time like this lack of love and understanding that seems to exist at the same time. It's kind of like this awareness of the suffering and deep love for the love surrounding me at all times. So it's been a really lovely, lovely journey, right?
So no, go ahead.
Yeah, it's just great to be here, Penny, because I know that you have helped a lot of people and have a really deep understanding of hypnosis in this work. So I'm excited to see where we can take this today. So thanks for having me.
You mentioned that lack of love and understanding. Would
Mm-hmm.
you continue on that thread a little bit? Are you talking about the outside world, something
Yeah.
you've experienced within yourself?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Within myself. I think one of my core issues is a sense of loneliness. I've always felt somewhat lonely. And I kind of, I think really, I heard this saying a long time ago, there's a God-shaped hole in each of us, right? And we have to fill that up with love and source and divinity and all the good things. And so for me, yes, I'm continually noticing when I feel separate, when I feel alone, that's usually just a calling that I need to go do some inner work and go reconnect with source. But so that's always there. But what I notice now is just even in my clients, and even when I go, so for example, I was at the grocery store the other day, I was at Fred Meyer. And Fred Meyer is kind of chaotic, right? At least it is for where I live, because there's other grocery stores that aren't quite as busy, that aren't quite the parking lot isn't quite as full. So this is kind of hectic. And there's a woman there, and I can see a look of panic on her face. And I just stopped and I just asked her, "Hey, how's it going?" And she couldn't find her cart. I mean, this woman was a little older, right? And I found her cart. It was just, "Oh, is that your cart right over there?" And the look of relief on her face, just from that moment of pure panic. And this is what I'm talking about, because it's just, there seems to be so much uncertainty in the world right now.
Yes.
And I see videos everywhere of people like, "I don't know how I'm going to make it. We're running out of money." And it's just like, it feels like there's so much of that now. And so, yeah, the suffering that I seem to pick up on just in leaving my house is kind of what I was mentioning.
I think that with this immediate news cycle, with social media that has evolved to this short form video, which you and I both know can very quickly bypass someone's critical factor and
Absolutely.
trigger that emotional reaction that sets off fight or flight. People don't realize how easily they become susceptible to that fear. And I'm with you. I would love to just take the world, a gentle shake by the shoulders, and say, look, love, whatever emotion it is we're putting back out into the world, that's being amplified and reflected back to us. If we want love, we have to be love. But you touched on something that I have chatted with clients and friends who are on this journey. I think that those of us who are healers, and I really don't like to call us healers because we heal ourselves.
Right.
We don't heal other people. But once you're on this journey and we recognize the misperceptions, like we're truly never really alone, right? But we can still feel that sense of separation that you talk about. I feel that when we have this awareness and we're on this path of discovery and we let ourselves be in this state of presence, that what we're actually feeling is exactly what you said. We're remembering source. We are remembering the collective consciousness. We are remembering the vibration and energy of all that is, which is love, joy, and gratitude. And when we have tuned out from that, that sense of being alone is actually that separation. And the only person who can uh, fix that, just as you
Is
said
you.
it,
And that's why
is you. And you
it's so
just tune back in.
perfect,
It's like
right?
a
Because
radio channel.
yeah, it's like whenever, like in the past, when I felt disconnected, I might go drink, right?
Yes.
And now when I feel disconnected, it's just like Eric, like it's like a reminder. It's like, whoa, hey, oh shoot, I forgot to put my shoes on, something like that, right? It's
Yeah.
just a reminder of who I really am. So I've really flipped I've tried at least to flip any negative experience in my awareness merely as a reminder, or at least like an invitation to a deeper understanding, right? If I'm annoyed by something, I probably need to take a break, because there are
Yes.
plenty of things in my environment that can annoy me, and I can completely and totally ignore them and not pay any attention to them and be just awesome. So if I'm to the place where I'm starting to be annoyed, or like my mind is perceiving that and picking up on those things, that's what it is narrowing down, right, for me, then it's time for me to take a break.
Yeah, absolutely. If I get into a space where I'm feeling that, and even
Mm-hmm.
overwhelm to me is a choice. We tend to overcommit, or we push
Yeah.
through beyond the point we know we should stop.
Right.
What I will do is I will take my shoes off and I will go outside and walk in the grass. I will
Oh,
go sit by the pool,
good.
to be near the water, just to be in nature and to reconnect with
Mm-hmm.
who and what I am. You mentioned how you ended up in the hospital,
Yeah.
and I have been in that same place.
Mhm.
What was happening in your life? I mean, you don't have to be specific, but just kind of a general idea of what was day to day like, or your overall feeling that it led to that. Because I feel like there's someone listening who
Right.
might be able to say, oh, wait a minute, you mean I can avoid getting to this
Getting to
point?
that
Because for me,
place.
it was misalignment. And I've shared
Mhm.
that story before, but I'm curious what it was for you.
I think I mean, this is a lot of self-reflection on my part, because alcohol was really the issue for me. And I went through a period where I hated alcohol. I thought it was like evil. And someone had told me that's why it's called spirits, right? Because you're going to drink and
Yeah.
the evil spirits will get in you. And
Yeah.
there's all kind of spiritual elements where you could
Right.
say that alcohol itself is the demon that kind of causes this.
Yeah.
And then after a while, I realized that alcohol was a gift, because it brought me to a place where I realized I'm unwilling. And I love this part about me. It's what I call my big FU, because I was basically big, giant FU to the entire world for making me believe the dumb story about happiness comes when you get a job and the picket fence. And so I
Yeah.
was so mad at myself. And I was just so pissed about the whole thing. And now when I look back on it, I merely had really gotten off my spiritual path, because when I was younger, I was raised Christian, and I loved Jesus, and I was on my bike and I was in the woods and I was a little artist. I was very spiritual. And when I got older, I stopped going to church. I stopped having a spiritual connection in nature. I stopped making music because I was in college. I stopped doing art because I was in college. And then I kind of stopped everything that we might call was kind of spiritual. And
Yes.
so I think that's really what it was. I disconnected from my spirit entirely to some degree and went 100% the world's version of joy and happiness. And I was really disappointed and pissed.
Yeah. I that is something I see and hear so much. We're taught that, to be successful, to be able to meet our needs, it's college, it's a degree, it's
Right.
get a good job, a career, save up for that retirement so that maybe one day you can get your life back for yourself.
Right.
And
And
There's
it was
something,
true probably for our parents, right? I think
yes,
this was true for my mom and my dad. And so
yes.
I don't think they were trying to feed me
Oh,
anything at
no, no,
all.
no.
I don't think
Well,
it was any, I don't think it was any. And that's why I was kind of like, I bought this story and I'm okay with it. I'm not mad about this anymore. And I'm glad that alcohol brought me to that place, right? Where I could realize,
yeah,
oh, it has nothing to do with that. It's me.
yeah. I really disagree with the notion and the trend that's happening out there where people are cutting off their parents when they recognize these disconnects in what their parents believed and
Mm,
what they've now come to know to be true for themselves. For example, what you and I have now come to know to be true for us. We were talking about this before we hit record, but that doesn't mean it's my mom and dad's fault. They were operating at the absolute best level that they
absolutely.
knew how. They were operating within the context of their life and what possibilities were open to them and what possibilities they were aware of, which brings me to the next little piece I really want us to talk about because we were
Mhm.
chatting about this beforehand. You and I both, I just find this so ironic. Neither one of us knew that entrepreneurship was even a thing.
Right. I didn't know you could be. I mean, me being an entrepreneur was like being a babysitter. Like that's kind of like what I thought when
Yeah.
I was a kid. Like, yeah, you could make a little money on the side, like being a babysitter or picking bulbs or having a paper route, right? But I didn't. There were businesses and then bosses and employees, right?
Exactly. I mean, I just accepted that the way through life was to get a job somewhere. And I could
Right.
either choose to have a hot and sweaty job, or I could choose to go to college and get a degree where I could do something and be inside. And I just, I remember when the bug hit because I became a hypnotist purely out of curiosity. I took a training with Ron Esslinger, who's a retired
Mhm.
CRNA, and I did it for the anesthesia credits. And Erika will know what I'm talking about. I got volunteered by him to be the student that he demonstrated glove analgesia on. And if you don't know what that means, it means
Oh.
using hypnotic suggestion to numb a body part. And he clamped a surgical clamp shut on the back of my hand. It was so tight, it left the marks there for 2.5 hours, but I never felt a thing. And that was spirit. That was my soul. That was my soul and Ron's soul connecting and saying, this is what we have to do to get Penny on her path. Like she's had the nudges, but she's just not getting it yet. And because that day I called my husband on my cell phone and I'm like, when I come home, I'm going to open a hypnosis practice. And he's like, wait, what? If you're anything like me, from day to day, you don't know how focused and in the zone you're going to be. I mean, when I'm creating content or working with clients, I like being focused and grounded, and that's why I'm happy I discovered Magic Mind. After just a couple of days of drinking Magic Mind in the morning, I noticed I was able to stay on task and get things done without squirrel brain. The best part, it doesn't make me feel antsy, and I sleep better because I'm not drinking caffeine all day. The really cool thing about Magic Mind is that it's all natural, made with matcha, nootropics, adaptogens, and it doesn't have any sugar. If you could use more focus and calm like I did, I highly recommend Magic Mind. You can get it at magicmind.com/design destiny. And when you use code Design Destiny, get up to 56% off your subscription or 20% off of a one time order in the next 10 days. If you already have a subscription, the code still works so that you can begin saving on your next shipment. Now, if you know me, you know I don't recommend anything I have not tried first and know that it works. Plus, they offer a 100%, no questions asked, money back guarantee, so there is nothing to lose. Head on over to magicmind.com/design destiny and use code Design Destiny. I'd get the 30 pack if I were you because it's the best value. So, what was the turning point for you that you're like, oh, this hypnosis is a thing? The mind is the most powerful computer. I've worked with electronic computers. Let me go work with the computer of the human body.
Right. And I didn't actually get that until I was taking a hypnosis course, because what happened when I left the hospital that day, I realized I needed to get back on my spiritual path. Like that was so clear. I started reading again. I read a bunch of books. This is when I found Wayne Dyer, and he's one of my heroes now, that kind of I talk about quite a bit, is very a big influence for me. And I took some other kind of courses, an energy breathing course. So I was kind of seeking at community colleges, just like these fun, a class on Tuesday evening and a different class here and there. And there was one at the tech college for hypnosis. And it was every Tuesday night for 3 hours. And I had no idea what it was going to be about, but it sounded fun. I do remember, though, the moment that it actually made sense to me. I can still imagine it in my mind. I'm very visual. I can see it. I was sitting there, and the teacher was up at the front. There was a whiteboard up there, and Jamie was her name, and she's talking about hypnosis. And I realized, because I'm a programmer, okay? I mean, I'm writing lines of code. We're looking at loops, and we have executable programs and methods and these parameters, like all of these things that we're trying to make highly effective. And so I realized, oh my gosh, hypnosis allows us to go into this deep place and reprogram some of the habitual components, the ways we've been thinking and feeling from a long time ago. And I think a literal, like a light bulb popped over my head. Like I remember sitting there thinking, this is a huge moment in my life. And that's when I started thinking I would do it professionally.
And what was that next step for you?
The next step, I was really good at networking. I was in corporate America, right? So we were networking like crazy. So I just emailed everybody in town. I called them in town, and I said, every hypnotist in town. And I said, hey, I'm Erika Flint. I'm learning hypnosis. Can I take you out for coffee? Right. And 2 of them said yes. And so, after I spoke with both of these people, I had a much better idea of kind of what it meant to be a professional hypnotist. And I got other training, and then I got my first client using Google Ads. It was Google AdWords. Got my first client in 3 days using Google Ads. That was back in 2013, maybe 2014.
Yeah, that was how I got my first client as well in Connecticut. That was before the days of virtual hypnosis, and things were in person. And I closed my practice in 2015. And when I reopened in January of 2018, I had my first client within days of running Google Ads. But I also had some interesting callers because Google Ads had changed how they did things. And this is part of being in business, right? Things change so quickly. Google had changed the way they did their targeting. And I was getting calls for people who were interested in hypnosis for more interesting aspects. We're not going to go into it, but it wasn't for that personal development. It wasn't for the weight loss and that type of thing. And so it's easier than I think being online, because now I'm doing everything organically. So I am the Google ad.
Yeah.
The podcast is a Google ad because it's virtual. What were some of the challenges that you initially faced starting that business? I mean, in terms of like mindset, what you believed was possible. Where did you go from there? Because you've played a role in what I do.
Yeah, I mean, my first challenge was time, because I had a full-time job, right? Yeah. And I do not want to work too often, right? And so thankfully I was able to modify my schedule a little bit, and my family helped. So there's absolutely, in my history, there's people that supported me in taking extra
Yeah.
time where I might be doing the dishes or something in that first year. So part of it was that, and then part of it was learning kind of, I would say, maybe the sales process. I had a couple things to learn there with sales, like not compromising with clients, not like certain things that we can do that really don't serve our business and don't really
Right.
serve our clients either. So that first year, really kind of learning more about being an entrepreneur too, right?
Right.
One of the things that really surprised me and still surprises me is, at least for um, hypnosis, and still some of our clients will call us and say, yeah, nobody else has called us back, right? And I don't know how common that is in your area, but
Wow.
there are some hypnotists who run practices, but they either don't answer their phone or they'll email back 2 or 3 days later. So
Oh, wow.
I always felt from the beginning, like if I responded immediately back to a client, whether they called or emailed, I would get that client, right?
Yes.
So there was some level of professionalism that felt kind of easy coming from corporate America, that other people maybe were just taking their time to reply in 3 or 4 days. I was replying in 10 minutes, and that absolutely helps, doesn't it? When they're calling us, by the time they reach out and ask for help, it can take our clients a lot of heartache just to pick up the phone or an email and agree to
Yes.
reach out for help, right? So a lot of times getting back to them right away it's very loving and can be of great service.
It is, because at least for a lot of my clients, they've had experiences in the past where they didn't feel seen, they didn't
Yep.
feel heard. And often people don't think about hypnosis until they've reached a point that nothing else has worked.
Yep.
And if you're listening to this and you've never thought about hypnosis, I'm going to tell you it's so much better if you take advantage of it before you get to that point. But the thing that I ran into is that I searched high and low on the internet. I did not find other hypnotists who were advertising or had their businesses listed. And I finally found two different places, one down in Hattiesburg and one up in Starkville, where they had a hypnotist on staff, but they offered other services. But periodically I would say, oh yeah, there's a hypnotist over here and there's a hypnotist over there. But people were really totally relying on word of mouth and weren't even advertising
Right.
that they were available. So I would actually get a lot of calls. And it became to, what you were saying about sales and getting on those calls and things that don't serve people. I really had to be in integrity,
Yeah.
and also to learn, because we don't come into this knowing everything. Everything's a learning process. Who wasn't quite ready for that work yet, and who, were not healthcare. I was a healthcare professional, but I wasn't a mental healthcare professional
Yeah.
to know what we don't know enough to say, you know what, I think you're not ready yet. And I would really love for you to connect with someone else and make sure this is even an appropriate path for you, because we don't want to do any harm either, because hypnosis is very, very powerful. It is such a fast transformational process, but at the same time, we get to be responsible with that as well.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah. And it's super amazing to be able to help people with such long-term problems by the time they do make it to us. And I think that might be changing, Penny, right? I think some people might
Yeah.
be recognizing that hypnosis and what we're doing is tapping into that power inside, right? And this is one of the
Yeah.
ways I'm describing hypnosis now. It's really the magic and the power of hypnosis is really the power of you, the power of the
Yes.
aligned you, the power of the you that isn't afraid, right?
Right.
so that people don't think of hypnosis quite as mysterious. It's a tool that gives us
Right.
access to deeper parts of us.
Yeah. I think that it is becoming more mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we're all doing the world a favor by talking about it, not just you and I, but everyone else, and how we can tap in and access this part of us. And in my experience, I don't know about your experience, but in my experience, every single client I've ever worked with, there has been a deeper sense of self acceptance. There has been a deeper sense of self love and knowing that you're worth it, whatever it is that you come in for, knowing that you're worth it in life.
Yeah.
And there's no dollar amount that can be placed upon that. That's life changing. I remember this one client. I love her. She's been on the podcast. She's talked about this. She came in just having some challenges with her relationship. She wasn't as open to receiving love and
Mm-hmm.
in that connection as she wanted. And she came in specifically for her relationship with her partner. And I remember one day we went through this process where we gained some gratitude around some past situations. And she shared on the podcast, she has a 3-year-old son at the time. And I mean, they had a fair relationship, but he had never been one to hug her. He had
Mm-hmm.
never been one to love on her and say, Mommy, I love you. She messaged me later that day. She came out of that session. She went into the other room and he went running up to her, jumped in her arms. Mommy, I love you. It forever changed their relationship. I mean, a 3-year-old child, his mother allows herself to be vulnerable enough to go through this process to heal herself, and his life is forever changed.
And he notices. And
He
man,
noticed it.
we
She
see
didn't
this
have to
all the
say anything.
time. Yeah. But they can tell, and animals can tell, and spouses can tell, and our partners can tell. And this is where people are like, what'd you do? Did you lose weight? Did you color your hair? What's going on with you? You're different.
Something's
You're like,
different.
I'm
Something's different.
happy. I'm at peace. Right.
It
I'm not chasing the world around anymore.
yes, it's something about that. I don't know if this has ever happened to you when you've facilitated this process for someone, and at the end of the call, they look 10 years younger than they did when you
Yeah.
started, because all of that stress, the
Yeah.
angst, the worry, that everything just relaxes. It's just like whoosh,
You can see it.
gone.
Yeah. It's amazing. Um, I write about that in one of my books where I see my client for the first time, meaning, when she came in, she's kind of down and, tired. And then at the end, she was just so full of life. She brought me a bag. She was so cool. She brought me a bag of her favorite things. So she's like, Erika, you helped me in my life so much. I brought you all my favorite things. So these are like all of her, like her favorite nail file, her favorite, like all of these fun little gifts. I still have them, as a matter of
Yeah.
fact. And then we get the clients. I always find this super interesting too. So this is where it's really, when we do a really good job, this doesn't happen, right? But it can still come to mind for some of our clients,
Yeah.
because they'll wonder, they'll be like, man, I feel so great. I wonder if maybe it wasn't really that bad, right? Maybe, has this ever happened to you, Penny, where they kind of discount the sorrow or the pain they might have been in before because now they're at a place of such relief they can't feel that feeling anymore?
Yeah. I wouldn't say exactly like that, but I have taken people through a process, and just it's almost as if they don't remember.
Right.
And that's actually where we're supposed to be. I'll come back to that in a moment, but they don't remember. And sometimes this did happen once where the person went back into a situation that they had been into before,
Oh.
and yeah, because it really like you say, I guess thinking now, that's probably what went on in the mind. Like, well, it couldn't have been that bad. This was so easy. And then they go
Right.
back into a situation because now I coach clients as well, but at this point in time I didn't, and it was an issue around boundaries, right?
Yeah.
And we can be attached to expectations, and maybe we don't have a boundary in there, and we have this expectation still that on some level, well, to be a good person, it's up to me to give it my all and to make this work. And then they get back in the same
In
situation.
the same situation.
But talking about not remembering what it felt like, I apprenticed with a shaman, and I've been connected with him for uh, almost 2 years now. And one of the lessons that he shared with me when he and I had our private call, you're going to love this. It goes right back to our self-hypnosis teaching. If this episode is resonating with you, then I want you to know that if you're recognizing issues you've dealt with before, it's not your fault. As entrepreneurs, well, heck, as any human being, we have all had experiences in our lives that have created imprints in our subconscious mind that have formed beliefs, things that we should avoid, right? Things that we have to do to be accepted or not be seen as different because that's uncomfortable to the brain, right? And then we have the stories that we carry, the things that we picked up from our parents and society around us around what it means to be successful and to be an entrepreneur and to have money. And if you're an entrepreneur and you're sitting at low multi six figures and you want to go to seven figures, and in your mind, you're questioning whether or not you're ready for it, then I want you to join me for the Thrive to Seven Figures workshop. It's November 6th through the 9th. We're going to meet every day on Zoom. It's also going to be live streamed into a Facebook group where you will have exclusive access to the replays in that group for life. And I'm going to systematically take you through the different areas where blind spots can show up and slow you down so you can be proactive and avoid those. So the link is going to be in the show notes. It's pennychason.com/7fig. That's the number 7FIG. Join me. It's $27. There's going to be a little bit of hypnosis every day. I promise you, you're going to get so much value out of this. You're probably going to say what one of my past participants has said. Are you sure you charge the right amount of money for this workshop? So be sure to go and to sign up, pennychason.com/7fig. Let's dive back in. The self-hypnosis that we use, that's that clearing, it's the antivirus of the mind.
Mm-hmm.
He literally used almost the exact same words. There is nothing wrong. We have to learn our lessons, and we have to bring our lessons with us, but we cannot carry the baggage of the emotions of the past. We have to find a way to put that baggage down, and each and every day we have to do the work to clear out the stuff that we pick up each and every day that does not serve us.
Right. It's like the dust that comes in your house, your clothes get dirty, your dishes, like everything. We have to do that every single day. And that's just such a good practice, right? I mean, I find myself doing it in real time. I'm asking like if a thought comes up that I'm, really, is that really true, Erika? Like I'm trying to catch these things in real time so that it's not like piling up, right?
Yeah, that is our practice, isn't it? That's the path. That's the way we continue to grow. And I've had someone say to me before, it's like almost exhausting. And I'm like, don't look at it as exhausting. You don't have to catch every thought. Just be aware and go, oh, I see you. I see what you're trying to do. Now, your passion is obviously helping people to fill this disconnect, the separation, this alone. But you also train.
Yes.
And you've trained a lot of hypnotists. You are one of like only a couple, I think, I could be wrong, of hypnotists that have trained so many students. You're actually accredited in the methodology that you teach, which is a hurdle
Yeah.
to meet those requirements to do that. What is it about training others? Because you're not only training them to be hypnotists, you're training them to be entrepreneurs sometimes as well.
Right. Well, I remember when I first transitioned from full-time software engineer to full-time hypnotist. So I did that in a year, and that was a real transition. I put full-time date on my calendar and started filling it up, and then took a leave of absence at my job. Right. So that was, I forgot my train of thought. Ask me a question again, Penny, please.
Just training now, training
Oh yeah,
others
training.
and teaching them to be entrepreneurs.
So as soon as I became a full-time hypnotist, in about 3 months, I had a full-time practice. And in less than a year, I had a 3-month waiting list. And the reason for that is because it's really effective, and I was really good at marketing, and I just love every client. So we get to establish a real sense of love and trust there right away. But it was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking for me to, when a client would come in, they would be really excited because it works really well. And I would have to tell them, okay, I can't see you for 3 months.
Yeah.
And so I realized I wanted another hypnotist on staff, and it just made sense for me to be a trainer, because I was also a trainer in as a software developer. That was a big part of what I did. I would teach people a lot of that stuff too. So as soon as I became a trainer, now I hired one of my grads, and then I hired another one of my grads. So then we had 3 people on staff, and it wasn't just me. We didn't have a 3-month waiting list anymore. I had the time and energy and ability to write a book. And then I was able to give people the information. So they would come to me. Shannon was working with people. We had other folks working at the same time. And so now when they came to me, I could give them my book, and I could say, go read this book. I'll see you in 2 weeks. So we got it down to 2 weeks. Yeah. And now I had something to give them. And then after that, we did a live event. And we recorded it. So now there's a video and a book. And so now there's an onboarding process for folks that want to lose weight, so that they can start losing weight and keep that momentum all the way up until their first session. So all training was part of kind of a necessity, but it's something that I absolutely love to do. And I'll tell you, for someone like me, where I was in corporate America, software engineer, I mean, people think it's crazy that I went from that to hypnosis, and I don't. I think that it makes sense to me, because we're programming and we're looking at executable programs. We're looking at what's not working. We're looking at pattern matching, all of those types of things, right? And there's a lot of people out there that would love to have a career where they're really helping people, right? So yeah, that's what I started doing.
I think that for most people, we have an innate drive, that soul drive to see the world to be a better place. And in terms of creating that onboarding process, that is something that I've come to find very important, because when I first went full-time, I was taking deposits to book appointments 2 and 3 months out.
Yep.
And it does get to be interesting in that, and people are waiting for you and waiting for you. And then I learned about the concept of onboarding, and it's what sets us apart from healthcare. Hypnosis isn't a replacement or a substitute for healthcare, be it physical, mental, whatever. But I find that people will share with me things they've never shared with anyone else, just because we have built this bond and we listen.
Yeah.
We have the time
That's
to
what
listen.
It's all about. I mean, it really is all about creating an environment so our clients feel so safe beyond even what I can understand, really. Yeah. But to feel so connected and safe that it is beyond what you can kind of conceptualize, right? And in that moment, that present moment, magic happens, right? All sorts of things. We have
It
hypnotic
does.
tools that help us, right? But
Yeah.
there's more going on, I think.
Yeah.
And
Well,
that,
there is more going on. There's our energy,
yeah,
there's our vibration. You know, someone who feels pulled to work with you might not necessarily feel pulled to work with me, and vice
yeah,
versa. I've had people
yeah,
reach out to me and they're like, as soon as I heard your voice, I knew. And,
yeah,
you know, to just kind of go a little woo, you can, if you're listening and you're like, I don't think I believe in this, that's okay. That's okay. But I feel like we connected and we had this agreement that when the time was right, we're going to come together
yeah.
and this beautiful magic is going to happen. Where are you with alignment? Where are you with the peace that this brings into your life? I mean, because above all, when we do what we feel called to do,
Mm-hmm.
it changes us
Yeah.
as a person. What would you say? First of all, what does that feel like for you? That's my first question. And then the second question is where do you see this all going for you?
Yeah.
What's possible?
Well, it feels really good. I feel like I try to stay what I would say in the present moment as often as possible because that's where I think everything really exists. And a lot of the work that I do really is hypnosis or meditating, whatever we want to call it, and just imagining from my heart and the rest of my body the deep love that I feel inside that I know can be true. So I feel a lot of the work that I do isn't thoughtful at all because I don't know that I have the thoughts that are going to solve what I'm feeling right now. So a lot of my work feels like it's very um, just imagining a sense of peace and love so that I get that in my body. Right. And anytime that I'm not feeling good, anytime that I get kind of those negative experiences, I'm dancing, I'm doing hypnosis, I'm writing, doing things like that. Now, the way that this has made it kind of, I don't want to say hard, but like sometimes it's hard for me to deal with people outside of my job because sometimes I feel like I'm a little weird and I like being weird. Like I'll totally own it, but it is true. And so like if I go to an event or something, like I want to talk about certain things and I might get a little bored. So I kind of find that um I don't really want to talk. I never want to talk about regular things. I'm much more likely to walk up to you, Penny, and say, what do you like to do? I said this to somebody the other day. They're like, did you just ask me what I like to do? And I said, yes. What do you love? What really makes your heart sing? She's like, wow, what a great question. I'll answer that. And so that's the only thing. Sometimes I feel like I would rather be at home playing and dancing than at an adult event talking with people.
I totally get that. I could have more enjoyment being out in my pasture with my cows and my donkeys and having a conversation. And like people don't get it. And you know, part of that comes from other things, but I've never been that really people person. And because I would hear things like, you just remember the weirdest stuff.
Mhm.
Like, and what are you talking about? And I can walk a horse around the barn before I get to the point. When I really get into something, and it's
Mhm.
like, get to the point already.
Yeah.
So that's
Well, there's a
just
lot of
uniquely
negativity
me.
too. Right. And I'm just like, I put a boundary around myself. I refuse to be around victims. I refuse to be around blamers. I'm just going to walk away. I mean, I remember this was really funny. This was during I don't remember what you called it, the bug or whatever.
Yeah.
And somebody walked in talking about the person, I think who was president at the time. I didn't really want to entertain that conversation whatsoever. They walked
Yes.
in, mentioned this person's name. I literally stood up and walked out of the room. And two people came up to me later and they were like, "Oh my gosh, Erika, that was so cool." As soon as she said that, you just left the room. And I'm like, I'm not trying to be that obvious. I don't
Yeah.
want to be offensive. I don't
Right.
want to be rude, but I'm just not going to entertain certain
Yeah.
conversations. So yeah,
Yeah.
that might be a
Yeah.
problem
I
sometimes.
I often hear people talk about protecting their energy,
Yep.
and we really don't need to protect our energy. We need to decide what we're available for
Yeah.
and hold ourselves to our boundaries. And we can find a way to do that with kindness, love, and compassion.
Yeah.
And I have left many rooms. I have left many conversation. I'm like, oh, well, I have to go now.
Oh, right.
There's milk in the car. It's going to spoil if I don't get home. You just find a way to politely, because people are where they are. We're all where we are, and um, trusting that we're all doing our best in the moment. So if someone's interested in training with you to become a hypnotist, if they want to go down this journey of learning the mind, the programming, how they can help facilitate these shifts and change lives, and how do they do that? How do they connect with you?
Yeah, there's a couple different ways. You can grab my book, Can You Be a Hypnotist? I have it right here. Can You
Mm-hmm.
Be a Hypnotist? CascadeHypnosisTraining.com is one of the best ways. And we do live every Thursday. So not every Thursday, I shouldn't say every Thursday, most every Thursday. Sometimes Erica's on vacation and sometimes we're teaching. So we don't go live on those days, but we're
Right.
doing live hypnosis training, very short on Thursdays, to give people an experience and introduce them to professional hypnosis, to give
I
them a
love
taste
that.
of it, right?
I absolutely
So
love that. If there's one takeaway you could give the entire audience about finding peace within themselves, what would it be?
got to be kind to yourself. You don't make any progress when you're mean to yourself. When we take 2 steps forward and 1 step back, the 1 step back is always you being mean to yourself, you being unkind to yourself. So heart-centered hypnosis, and the way we get awesome relief for our clients is by continuing to surrender into deeper love toward yourself over and over and over and over
Yes,
and over and over again.
I agree 100%. Thank you so much for coming and having this conversation, Erika.
Penny, thank you so much. I don't know if people know how amazing you are and how much lovely, beautiful, peaceful space you hold whenever you walk in the room, and here holding space for this conversation and all of the people that you've helped. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for everything you do. It's
Thank
been
you
an
for
honor.
that. All right, everyone, if you love this, please take a moment, screenshot this episode, share it to Instagram, tag me. I'll make sure Erika gets tagged back. Let's share with everyone how there is a great deal of possibility out there for us. Let's not keep this message secreted away for ourselves. See you next week.